Hi, my name is Yolanda Wallace, and you're listening to another podcast of Mother's War on Violence. Thank you, listening audience, for listening to our show. And today I have a hot topic, interesting for me and for our listening audience, about financial education. And today I have Miss Luisa, and she is with Busey Bank, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? So my name is Luisa Gomes, and I am the Vice President of Community Banking Development. And what I get to do is I get to cover the entire Central Illinois, where Busey, any place there's a Busey, and I'm able to help assist and educate the communities about financial literacy.
Awesome,
Yeah,
awesome.
So
We met at a fair that you were attending, and I was attending, and it was great to see Busey Bank there, because that's where Mothers War on Violence is. We bank with, and them being very supportive of our non-for-profit there. I was just wondering on that level, what help do you provide for non-for-profits and businesses, small businesses?
For small businesses and non-for-profits. So we have a couple of products there and a couple of services that we can talk about. So let's start from the beginning of like, say a person is just thinking about having a small business and they're not quite sure. One of the things that we do, like I mentioned before, is that financial literacy. So they could participate in one of our workshops of what does it look like to make a budget, make a business plan. We also have education tied to what banks look for when people are small businesses and things of that nature. So we have this catalog of information that we're able to engage and educate our communities about. And then, of course, once, we can also be able to work with small businesses and with nonprofits, and to see how Busey can meet those needs. But starting from the very beginning with an individual who, like I said, they're like, hey, I want to know what this looks like. That's one of the things Busey can do, is we do have that educational opportunity and that component for people to learn more about, hey, what does this next step look like? What resources are in the community, and what does Busey look for?
That is great. Okay. So I was just, wondering if you could share with a little history about Busey Bank, because I'm from Champaign-Urbana, and I know Busey, we had it there. I think it started there.
Yes.
But you would know more than I.
So our headquarters is in Champaign. So that's where Champaign is. But specifically here in Peoria, Busey came around when we purchased Southside Bank. And I believe that happened in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So that's how Busey ended up being in the Peoria area. But yes, Champaign is our headquarters. We have Busey branches in Fort Myers, Florida. We have some branches in St. Louis as well. And then, of course, across Central Illinois here in Peoria, Bloomington, Leroy, Pekin. We have all these branches. And so like I said, going right back, all these services are free and they're available to anywhere there's a Busey.
Well, good. That is awesome. What we're focused on, one of the focuses of today would be, why is financial education so important?
Yes. Okay. So, in keeping in line with, your topic, Mothers War on Violence, we're, as a society, we're trying to figure out, so how can we address violence? What does this look like? What is the root of the cause of what the violence is? But historically, we know that economics play a role.
Right. They do.
A huge role.
Poverty,
economics, being left out of financial opportunities.
Right.
It's
Of course, and as a African American person, I'm sure that, well, I know that in the past that has been historically the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, we know that historically and societal-wise that there's quite a significant amount of individuals who are underbanked and underserved. And that's due to, probably lack of knowledge, could be hindrances for where we stand in our intersections of life, could be our race, could be our culture, could be a lot of different factors that lead into that population of individuals who are underbanked or underserved. And so how does Busey how do we meet our community where their needs are? And that's one of the things that Busey is doing. We're really reinvesting back into our communities. And through that, like you said, the small businesses and things of that nature. But when you unpack all of that, it goes back to that economics. And how can we, as a society, start to show, not just show, but also teach and create opportunities for everyone to have these opportunities to participate in financial. It costs more for a person not to have a bank than it does to have a bank. Because if you think about it, if we live, I'm just going to get a money order, or I'm just going to go to maybe a check cashing place that, they're going to take their fee off the top of it. Those percentage rates are out of the roof. So when you think about, where we stand and what we look like and how we look like as a people and as a community, we have to start having some of these difficult conversations of what does it look like to do this and why, and not come in and, for me, my job, yes, I do education, but I also need to listen and ask the why and how can we be of service to you.
Oh, that is so good. Great.
Because I can come all day, every day, with my, my catalog or whatever.
Right.
But if it's Busey and specifically the Busey Bank Bridge Center, we're about that relationship building. It's how do you take those hard no's and turn them into yeses? How do we start to work with our communities and being able to get out there so they know that we are a place, we are invested in the community. Hey, come and see us through, this financial literacy path. It's okay, if you're here, we can meet you here.
Right.
And we can help you with your goals, like if your goal is home ownership, because going back to, poverty and things and home ownership is actually can be a very significant factor into creating some of those generational wealth.
Right.
In our communities. So think about it, if you're in a community, you're a renter, you're paying $1,400, $1,500 a month. You get into a house and you've been, you're been educated of how to be a responsible homeowner, what it looks like to live in your community, what it looks like to be a neighbor. Then we start to build our communities. We start to build our neighborhoods. Then we start to, break those chains of generational wealth.
Cross those barriers.
Yes, and break those barriers, tear them down. I think about when my mom transitioned a couple of years ago, she owned her home. And we were each one of us were able to get something, from it. And that's a real life example. And my mom was on retirement. My mom was retired. She was doing it by herself, with the household. So, I'm a walking testimony to what that looks like. I grew up in, a neighborhood where, we had to make things work. I grew up where, it was like if Dad was laid off from the Chrysler plant, how do we make these ends meet? So knowing that my mom did that for us, that is something that I would like for our communities to start doing for each other, is to say, how can we really start to elevate ourselves and being able to break those barriers, kick open those doors, and really have a seat at the table and really embracing and taking back our financial story.
So is that a long breakdown of how to leave your children something from a house that you own?
That's a long way. Yeah, that's
Okay,
like
that's
antidotes.
that's
That's a long,
another
I can
day.
long route, but yes, but that's just another way. And if you think about it, when you sit down every month, if you're a person that budgets, sit down with your kids. You know, because that's going to get them to think about it, to talk about it, because like I said, that we understand that economics are so tied to everything that we do. And so when you're doing, budgeting, or you get paid, or your caregiver has to do whatever, let's start having these conversations. Let's unpack these conversations and why it's so important to have this education.
And then we touched a little bit about African Americans lacking the information, of how important it is to save, how important it is to budget, how important it is to check your credit score, things like that. What do you do for just like, I don't know, basic learners?
Yeah, basic learners. No.
Yeah.
So what we do is, I mentioned briefly about our workshops. And so what we do is we work with community-based organizations, and we also have our building where we hold workshops at. But if a person wants to know, where do you go? Everybody can pull one free credit report. I'm going to give you some information while I'm on there.
Right, great.
Everybody can pull one free credit report from the major sources. That's going to be your TransUnion, your Equifax, and I always forget a number 3. TransUnion, Equifax, when it comes to me, I will say it because I always forget 3. I know it's 3. TransUnion, Equifax, and...
Is it Karma?
No, no. That's one of the ones that is.
Do they cost?
Yeah.
There's so many different ones.
Right.
That.
So if you go to the main ones, like I said, the TransUnion and Equifax, and
those are the main ones I use.
Yep. If you go there, you can pull your credit report. Everybody's entitled to a free one every year.
Okay.
So you can get one of your thing, and you can pull it from there, and that way you know. And what you're looking for is you want to see what lines of credit that you have opened. Sometimes we've had people come in that have had lines of credit open for them, and they're like, that's not ours. And then, in turn, we'd have to, explain to them how to dispute it and things of that nature. So that's an easy way. That right there is an easy way to just say, and the reason why you want to know what's on your credit report, because like I said, it could be something on there that you might not have done that might be standing in the way and affecting your score. And it's good to know where you are, because the credit score basically is like your gateway to being able to access certain things. So knowing what your credit score is, knowing what your financial goals are going to be instrumental into achieving those goals. So don't be afraid to pull the credit score.
Right.
To pull the credit report. It's okay. It's okay, because I know we don't like to do hard things.
No.
Like that's why people don't budget, because it doesn't feel good to budget. It doesn't feel good to look at it on paper, but it's easier to focus on the reward and not the punishment.
Right.
Don't look at it as a punishment. Look at it as a reward, because it's a reward of, in 3 years, I can buy a house.
Exactly. If I continue to make my payments on time, and if I'm on time with paying my mortgage or my rent, they can go towards a better credit score. Okay.
Yes. So just being on time, making sure you don't overextend yourself. I can tell you right now, a little thing. Do you watch any of the apps that are available, like Stars, Netflix, Hulu?
Yes.
Okay. And what they do, they tell you get a 7-day free trial.
Right, they do.
Because you want to watch one show.
I want to watch a show.
You just want to watch one show. And then so they say, oh, well, you can have this amount of time, and you can do this.
Yeah.
How many times do you forget to end the subscription?
All the time, right. Then I have this whole open account with a monthly payment.
Yes, and so when you think about it, when people say, "Oh, I don't have," how do you budget when you don't have anything? I think it's the little things that we don't think about, like the subscriptions that we don't think about. We don't think about, if we're a fan of going to get a Polar Pop every day, that's $5 a week.
Right.
So it's like, really, how do we what does that relationship look like with money?
Using our money.
Using our money. How are we recirculating our money? How are we saving our money? How are we preparing ourselves for our futures? Mm-hmm. So, like I said, when it's those little tiny things that will start, those are the things that don't feel that uncomfortable to say, oh, I'm not going to get this soda.
Right.
I'm not worried about getting rid of this subscription because I'm not using it. Those
right.
are the one things that you can feel like you have some autonomy over. And you can be able to do those things. Right. So, so those are just little tiny ways that you can do it. Little tidbit ways. Mm-hmm. And I'll go ahead, I'll give you another one too. So okay. Say if you have debt, you have some credit cards, and you want to learn what's the best way to help your credit score. So we have what's called the avalanche method and the snowball method. Mm-hmm. With the avalanche method, what you do is you take the credit card with the highest interest rate and you start paying on that. Now, the snowball is where you pay off the lowest balance first. So that's one of the ways that you can do it one way or the other. Have you ever met a person, or maybe even yourself, say, I have 5 credit cards, and I do my minimum payment. I'm gonna send them a little extra every month.
Yeah.
I got a little extra, so I'm gonna send a little extra. You do that every month.
Right.
But just reimagine and saying, okay, instead of taking this $100 that I'm putting towards, just little tiny ones, I can put that towards one of my balances.
Right.
And then you can start to see that shift and that movement and the credit score starting to come up. So those are different tips that you can be able to do. But that's one of the things that in our communities, we have to just have those conversations.
So you're saying, and I've done that lots of times, paid off these credit cards, and then later on they, kind of surface and come back up a little bit. You're saying that the snowball effect, if I pay off the lowest credit card debt, that it eventually will raise my credit score?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because you won't have so much. So it won't be your debt to income ratio. So it's like you don't want to carry that high balance on those credit cards because it is building, those long-term, is building interest. It's those long-term credit cards like you've had for 10, 12 years. Don't close them because it's showing history.
Right.
A lot of times they think, oh, we don't need anything on there, but it's showing history. It's showing history, and it does affect your credit score.
Okay, so it's okay to keep them open, just pay them off.
Pay them off, yeah. Okay. And it's okay to keep a low balance, but keep it under a certain percentage.
Okay, now what if you want to close them all together? Because I heard if you close them, it causes you to have a negative.
It will. It can bring your credit score down. It could bring it down. It could, but then it also will bring it up because you don't have anything like that. But then if you don't have any credit, then some lenders might be like, well, you don't have any history of credit. So it's very tricky to know, and it depends on what you're trying to do too. Okay. If you're trying to go into home ownership, if you're trying to buy a car, if you're trying to just get a small business loan, all of them are different and have different requirements. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you the one thing that they're going to look like for all of them is your credit score.
That's true.
At the end of the day, no matter where you're going and what you're asking for, what you're going to do, your credit score is always going to come up.
So what if you want to close those credit cards? Say you're trying to get rid of them. The credit cards,
Well, then
when is the best time to close them?
When is the best time? Not when you're looking to do a big purchase.
Okay.
Not when you're looking to do a big
Not
purchase.
when you have this high, big,
right. When you're looking
balance.
to do some big, so like saying you're working with Busey and you're like, I want to get a house, and you're working with one of our loan officers, and you get there, and all of a sudden they're telling you, okay, this is where you are on paper, this is what your income is, this is what your credit score, and you go in there, all of a sudden you just boom.
Wow.
It just closed all of them at one time. So I would say in this instance, talk to somebody at the bank. Talk to, those resources and see, hey, is this a good idea to do this right now? It might not be the best time. You have to know what you are trying to do and what your goals are to know when the best time it is. So yes, the temptation to do it just like close them all is there, but I would say understanding what your goal is will dictate to how you navigate doing
and
that.
that's the reason why financial planning is so important.
Yes. And that's why we have to start saving, and we have to start doing all those things to prepare ourselves for those next steps in life.
Do you have any statistics to share about finances?
About finances,
That
I can
you
tell
know
you
of?
about 20% of our population is underbanked.
Underbanked.
Okay. And what that means is they don't have a financial institution.
Oh, so that's why we see all these little pop-up shops that have these one-stop shops, get her done. Not to say that these are bad places, but that people use those opposed to going to the bank.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. That's what's
like
happening.
The what do they call the auto loans
or checking cash or something like that. Or doing the your mortgage
Sun Loans
Sun
or
loans.
whatever
Yep.
these different little
And
shops
those percentage rates are very high. But once again, if you don't know, then how do you know? And so if you're using one of those places to handle your finances, look at what those interest rates are. Look at what those interest rates are. Look at what fees they might be tacking onto there. And then look around at what financial institutions are doing as well. Because, so say if a person has had a bank account in the past, and for whatever reason they didn't close it and it ended up going negative and it just sat there, you end up going into a system that's called check systems. And every financial institution can be able to do this. So if you're in check system, that means you have a negative ding against you financially to do with the financial institution. But what Busey has is called a Start Fresh checking account. And what people can do is they can get this checking account. It does have some fees attached to it, but after 12 months of consecutive being on there, then you can transition into a different account. So that's helping you build up as well, showing that you're building that credit, and then you're going to be able to pay off whatever's in check systems and then be able to get a regular account. So that's how Busey is able to, work with clients to say, and customers to say, well, this might not be for you right now, but this is what we do have to offer. So that you can be able to use this for a year to be able to get yourself back on track.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Well, that is awesome. That's a wealth of information that we could use on a daily basis. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I would just like to add, but first I'd like to say thank you for having me on. This has been pleasant. I enjoy this. And then also to come down and visit us. We are called the Busey Bank Bridge Center. We are located at 2120 Southwest Adams Street. We do workshops. We can come to you and do workshops as well.
Okay.
So if you have an organization that you're working with, like say if your home church congregation wants to put on, or you have a women's ministry or a women's group or sorority or a fraternity or a small business, whoever and everybody, you live in Peoria or anywhere there's a Busey, reach out to us. And like I said, we're there with our brick and mortar is there. We host workshops. We also have an in-home loan officer that works there with our My Community Banking.
Cool.
And all the services that I talk about, workshops, we work with youth. We work with individuals to help with retirement. We're able to go into these spaces and being able to give the same information. So just knowing that Busey is out here and the Bridge Center is out here and we're here and we're invested in our communities for financial literacy.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank our listening audience. You're listening to WCBU 89.9 FM.